my hope is that in this video I can have this GS750 driving. I've had it running before, but I want to be able to ride it and make sure everything works. So I don't know if you guys have been following along with this build. I'm doing this whole kind of like wild GS750 Cafe Racer build. Did this Ducati single-sided swing arm, did the GSXR forks, all this kind of stuff. And in this last video, I made this clutch cover here because I have this huge offset front sprocket there. So my original clutch cover wouldn't work anymore, and I mounted the clutch onto this guy. So a couple things that I need to do to get this thing running and driving. I will need to tweak this clutch, make sure it all works, get the final adjustments right on that thing. But before I do that, I've got fuel now going to the carbs. I cleaned this in the ultrasonic cleaner, came out way better. So I've got to kind of finish hooking that up, making sure I got all the fuel running to the carbs and this thing will run. I've got just enough wiring, I think, to get this thing working. I've got my throttle cable and everything like that up there. I've got my brakes on, but I need to add fuel and bleed those. And then coming to the back here, I need to tighten everything, make sure everything's torqued down. If you remember, I put my chain on, but then I messed up my master link. I ordered a new master link, but the dealership that I ordered it through sent me the wrong one, which is kind of annoying. But I want to get that on there anyways because I want to have this bike driving. So yeah, we're really close. I just want to be able to kind of like do a little test drive around the block, make sure it all works before I do like the final weld up of the whole rear end. But we're getting very, very close. So fingers crossed, hopefully today I can take this thing for a little ride. So I got pretty much everything buttoned up on this thing. I tightened up all the engine mounts. I put some brake fluid in there. I got kind of like, yeah, everything ready for this thing to run and drive. Everything should be tight and good to go. Put some gas in the tank. I think the last thing I need to do is tweak this whole clutch setup and make sure that all works. But yeah, I'm gonna try to fire this thing up, see how it runs. It looks so sick with the exhaust on there too. Like, and then taking it off of this stand and kind of seeing how it looks. Man, this is a sick looking bike. This is so cool. So yeah, let me see how this thing runs, and then hopefully everything works with the clutch and I can take this thing for a quick little ride. So it's running and it actually sounds pretty sick, but a few issues. One is my fuel petcock seems to be leaking. I don't know if it's where it mounts to the tank or if it's the petcock itself. I'm gonna have to figure that out. And then some fuel is like just pouring out of the bottom of that one carb as well. I don't really know why. So yeah, gotta address that. And then my clutch isn't quite disengaging. Anyways, I just gotta tune all this stuff, make all this working before I could take it for my first ride. So hopefully it's not too complicated. There's always this one spot in the build where it's like you've done so much to get here and visually you've seen the project change so much, but then it kind of hits this flat spot of like, you got to get past this plateau and you got to figure a whole bunch of stuff out to make sure it all works, because this could all go wrong. And it's like, I'm back to the drawing board on all of this. I haven't done any of this stuff before, so I'm figuring it out as I go. And then that makes you kind of nervous of like, what if it does go wrong? What do I have to figure out here? So yeah, got a bit of learning to do on this clutch system, especially to kind of make this whole thing work. And then hopefully if that works, then the swing arm will all work as well. I'm kind of nervous about it, but yeah, we'll take this next step forward. I'm going to go do a bunch of research. And yeah, hopefully it all works and we can take it for this test ride. All right, so I've been doing a whole bunch more research on this and it seems like my clutch on here is stuck. I don't know if it's because it's not disengaging because I don't have enough force on here, or if the clutch discs themselves are actually stuck together. That seems to be a very common thing with these bikes, is if they sit for a few years, all the clutch discs in here can kind of get stuck together. I don't know if they get dried out or what happens. So a lot of people, what they'll do is they'll engage the clutch and then roll it down a hill and just try and like break free all those clutch discs. So I might have to do something like that to kind of break everything free, but it also could be that my clutch cover just isn't strong enough. I was kind of looking at this again, and if I look at the original clutch cover, it's got a lot of this reinforcement back here. I assumed it wasn't that strong because it's kind of just this thin aluminum piece, but then when you look at all the reinforcement there, that actually does add quite a bit of strength. So I don't know if my clutch plate is flexing too much and is not putting enough force into there. There is like a mounting bolt right there and there, but it still does flex a bit. And when I push on this, even if I kind of get like a bar in here and try and push on this, I can't move it. So I don't know if it's just because I don't have enough force, or if it's because everything's just so stuck in there that it's not breaking loose. So something's not quite working properly. So I'm just gonna, yeah, dig into this thing and figure out if I get this clutch to disengage. So these definitely felt like they were stuck together. Got a screwdriver in there and kind of pulled them all apart. There was quite a bit of resistance, and even still, like a lot of the plates are stuck inside of there. So I'm gonna take all these apart, coat them in some oil and put them back in just so they're not stuck to each other. And then the second thing I realized was this wasn't pushing out far enough, and I had pretty much backed this thing out all the way. And this is how you adjust your clutch. So I went ahead and tightened that up. That should make a difference and kind of push more on the pressure plate. So I'm gonna try that, see what that does, and see what soaking these in some oil does. And hopefully that should fix it. Alright, so I may have figured out my whole issue with this clutch. So after taking this whole thing apart, I know better how this whole thing works. So basically from the other side, it's pushing this and it's pushing against all the springs to be able to push this out. So you actually need quite a bit of force to be able to push on here. And what I didn't really think about was making this tab strong enough to be able to pull this together. So when I pull this right now, it basically bends this whole tab. So I'm gonna have to reinforce this. I may have to reinforce this plate a bit, but it might be okay because there's basically a mount right above and below it that holds it pretty good. So I'm gonna have to rejig this clutch cover a little bit, reinforce everything, and if I can get this where it can hold enough force, then I should be able to push that clutch free and get that on. So I'm gonna work on that a little bit. Then I'm gonna put this clutch cover back on, fill it up with oil, and try that. Hopefully that works. It works. Well, I think it like seems to work. When I pull this, no flexing, move the whole clutch, and then I can move that rear wheel. It's a little bit of resistance when it's in gear, but I checked on my bike and it's the same. Versus in neutral, it just spins really freely. And I can get the whole rear wheel to spin and the sprocket to spin with this clutch pulled. And everything seems pretty strong. Doesn't seem to be flexing or anything like that. So I think we finally have a working clutch. That's basically like the last major thing to get this bike driving. I just need to put some oil in it. I want to kind of reinforce these welds a little bit, make sure they're not going to break on me, and take this thing for a ride. It is, hey? I am stoked to be able to ride this thing. It is so cool. Dude, like, I don't know, just to have your project actually work, everything seems to work fine. And this bike just looks sick. I mean, check this out. It's such a cool looking bike. Getting it down on the ground. I want to probably change the stance a little bit, raise that back up a little bit more, but whew. So cool that everything works. I feel so much more confident about it. I still have to probably iron out a few things, but the bike runs. The big thing is one of those carbs is leaking gas, so I've got to probably take that apart. I think it's probably a float needs to be adjusted, to my guess. But yeah, so cool to have this bike working and running, be able to take it for the first ride. I think that's probably the biggest milestone of the whole project. Yeah, so I got that done. I think next I'm probably gonna weld up that whole rear end for good, finish that whole section of the bike off so that that's all done. Yeah, and then I'll probably move on to things like the seat, the tail light, headlight, all that kind of stuff to get the bike finished before we strip it down and do like a final paint. So yeah, it's working. Guys, I'm so stoked. Thanks so much for watching all these videos. I hope you're enjoying them all. I will really do my best to try and keep this thing moving ahead and get this whole thing done soon. I really want to get it done. So yeah, big milestone. Thanks for watching. Talk to you later.